I'd say
You're
go ahead if
welcome.
you.
Oh, it is 5
I'm gonna
o'clock.
go.
Okay, great. We shall go ahead and call this meeting to order. I have Council Member Rock, our newest council member is here, and Council Member McClimans and myself. Now, do we need to vote to make sure that we have Councilmember Rock on the CDC at this time?
Don't think so. I think that's done by.
I think that's done at council.
Yeah,
Oh, at
definitely,
council,
yeah,
okay,
council.
so I think we already kind of did that then, okay.
And I
We'll
don't,
discuss it
we don't
tonight.
need to vote to appoint you the chairman unless council member objects to that.
Okay.
I'm not objecting to anything.
It took me 6 months.
Yeah,
I
right.
abstained from so many.
So I did have a chance to read through the minutes and I did not see any changes. It looks like we don't have any department reports or presentations unless that's changed. No? Okay, so then our first discussion action item is E. We are going to be discussing AB 24-83, Resolution 24-83, authorizing the professional services agreement with the BHC consultant for stormwater improvements project design and construction, contract document deliverables. A mouthful. So that will be on page 5.
Okay. I had a lot of questions about this. Are you gonna do a presentation or?
Yeah, I am prepared to run through the projects and look at the maps and answer questions and. Okay, so for Agenda Bill 24-83, authorizing professional services agreement with BHC Consultants for stormwater improvements, project design, and construction contract document deliverables. Authorization of American Rescue Plan funds was approved per Agenda Bill 23-69 on May 23rd, 2023 to complete stormwater improvement projects. City staff identified needed projects from the watershed protection plan and areas with a known history of flooding problems, and selected 4 problem areas to include in the design scope. BHC consultants submitted a scope and fee to perform design and provide all construction contract documents required to advertise the stormwater improvement projects for construction contracts. And staff is requesting authorization of $437,654 of ARPA funds for a professional service agreement with BHC consultants to complete the scope. For budget, we have a current balance of $996,852 and a budgeted balance difference of $559,198. So what I'd like to do is, in your packet, we have the actual project locations.
So before we talk about the actual project location, I was kind of like, so I need to understand how these correspond to what's in the comprehensive plan. Cause I couldn't get any of these guys back to the comprehensive plan. And I'm wondering, if we're not following that, how is that determined? Who determines the projects and why are they, how do we figure that out? Because the plan had clearly had, a number of elements in it for capital expenditures. I believe it's table 13 of the plan. Right? And I couldn't find these on there at all.
Well, 3 of them are part of the swell retrofit program.
Where is that at?
What page are you on, Councilmember McClellan?
It's in the, comprehensive
Oh,
plan
okay.
document.
Oh.
Project 411.
That's a watershed protection plan.
It's the watershed element of the comprehensive plan. I don't have a link to it. Andy,
I can send it out to the whole.
can you send it out? Yeah. So what you're telling me, because I'm trying to figure this out, right? So we plan $319,000 per mile per year, right? And it says water quality swale retrofit program roadways are our single largest source of improvement services, swale retrofit program. So this, and it says citywide, so that's what you're saying. So then how did you pick, given that, how'd you pick these two areas, right? And then the Fred Meyer.
I'd turn that over to your stormwater engineer.
Sure. I believe this particular segment, we've identified it as exhibit A1. It's the SR 410 eastbound 208 to 211. This one, I believe, was in that watershed protection plan.
There was a Fred Meyer element in here. that I
That's
saw.
probably it.
Is that it? I just didn't recognize it because it talked about the Fred Meyer one.
Yeah, I think it's.
Is 17 Fred Meyer, it said at Tall Firs, and it was talking about broken curb. Not a stormwater. Right?
I'm not sure where the tall firs description came in, because if they're thinking of like what's on private property, like the movie theater, this project would have nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I didn't think that had anything to do with, yeah, so that's all I could find in there for Fred Meyer, which is kind of what I was like, oh, well, how are they picking this and why, and are there other areas, and, but then I'm like, I'm trying to understand, especially because we're going through this cycle of the comp plan, right, review and stuff, so this is my chance to understand how it plays, right, with what we're doing.
I will say one thing to keep in mind with this comp plan is we were actually just talking about this, and I'll let Drew get back into the specific projects. Is this comp plan is basically nearing its
And
end of its useful life. It has an adoption date of March of 2018, but really was a 2014, 2015 document. So it's nearly a decade old. So it's about this time that that continuity starts to break down.
Yeah, your
Right.
Jedi mind tricks, right?
Yeah. I'm not trying to get credit. No, I'll be honest. It's starting to break down because it's getting to, it's getting to the end of its planning purpose. So we were actually just sitting today having the same conversation as we talk about the CIP for the next 2 years. So one of the things that you'll see in the budget for the CIP budget for 25-26 is to do a new stormwater comp plan in 25-26, so we can begin to refresh that project list over time. So from my understanding, most of these fit into the swell retrofit, and then I'd kind of, and we can do some more research on that for you. But I think Andrew has a lot of good information on how we pick these specific locations and these projects.
Jason, we do have new council members, so can you, like, with the abbreviations, CIP?
Yeah, capital improvement plan. So every 6 years, thank you.
I know it's gonna be
Yep.
an automatic.
No.
I should get
No.
it.
That point, what it is, not for now, I'm just listening.
No,
I figured
please.
maybe I'll figure it out.
No.
Yeah, here in a minute.
Please, if there's an
Yeah.
acronym that I throw out that you've never heard of, please just stop me in my tracks and I will go circle
We're
back.
still learning half of them.
Yes,
It's like,
it becomes part of my second language, and
CIP log.
Yeah,
We're good.
yeah,
Okay.
it's the capital improvement plan that we do, and has all of our capital projects that we're gonna do in the city over a 2 and 6 year period.
Thank you.
So to answer at least part of your question in terms of how do we select, I mean, some of the projects are done. We've already completed them.
Okay,
And then the other projects are,
well, I was talking about these three, because they weren't in here, and I'm like, somebody actually went through and did it, so I'm looking for were there outreach from the community going, every time it rains, our streets are flooded, or is it?
that's
Yeah,
a big
so
part of it, yeah.
what kind of drove it, right?
Yeah, that's a big
Trying to
part of it.
understand.
So, operations and maintenance staff, I mean, they're really the ones that are boots on the ground
Mhm.
that understand where our greatest need is for stormwater improvements. So we rely on, their knowledge of the system to prioritize a lot of these CIP projects.
Okay. All right, so it's probably most of this is from personnel saying, hey, this is
busted, needs fixed.
I mean, that, even that list there was generated from
Yeah.
the operations staff.
Okay.
I mean, their knowledge of where the problem areas are.
Okay, all right. So, and then, so the area by Fred Meyer is, so Operation Maintenance said that that's an issue.
Yeah, so here, let me,
Kind of interesting.
generated, some photo packets here.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of explain what the, kind of hard to see everything from aerial. So,
You have another one?
Yeah.
so on this first one, on this first photo here, this is at the intersection of SR 410 and 211. And you'll see where, the stormwater runoff has kind of scoured the shoulder, it's picking up material. And when it picks up that material, it plugs the conveyance system and plugs the culverts. And so what we want to do with that is armor that with fabric or quarry spall or some kind of combination of the two to prevent that kind of sloughing into the conveyance system and plugging it. Because what will happen is that this will, if you look at page 2, the second photo, you'll actually see pooling water on SR 410.
And
Because
what's
of that
this
con-
one located? This one with the pooling water?
That is right next to Benny's.
Okay.
You're talking about the bottom
McDonald's.
picture with the water on the roadway?
Oh, that's McDonald. This is McDonald? Right there, McDonald. No, this one. Oh. Pretty sure it was right in front of Benny's.
Yeah.
And then on page 2, photo 1, sorry, I didn't mention this.
Yeah.
This one here is just a shot of the conveyance system existing where it needs a tune up. So there's no swale, there's no really where for stormwater to go. So it just will pool there. And then when it gets overwhelmed, it'll just, pool out on the shoulder and then out on the road. And then on page 1, the second photo, this is just a routine replacement of a grate. These herringbone style grates are, they're great for bicyclists, but not so good for stormwater collection, just because they plug up so easily. So part of this project will also include replacing those grates to vein grates, which are much more efficient and it won't plug as easily. And this intersection here in particular, last year I know was flooded out. So that'll be addressed in this project as well. Any questions on project number 1, SR 410 eastbound?
Yeah,
All the way
so-
through 11?
Yeah, so what was that project one? We had a cost for the design of that. What do we think the implementation is gonna cost? Is it like 5 times the
Well,
design?
on this particular project, this one here on SR 410, we're considering, having this one, be completed by operations and maintenance staff, depending on their, workload and ability. I'm gonna let Keith make that determination when the time comes. But we always try to give, those kind of opportunities to the staff if we can. But, we're overwhelmed with a lot of stormwater management in other places, a lot of street and maintenance and other times of the year. So if it works, our staff can do it.
Didn't that impact Peak 410? Kidding.
That's a little bit of-
I mean, it'll eventually make it all the way down there, won't it?
Well,
I'm just kidding.
there was a question about, because we do, even though this area here next to McDonald's, this approach right here, we get lots of calls about that.
I've seen.
And I'm sure that
Out bad.
the council gets lots of calls about that. The issue is it's all private. And, everything kind of does slope that direction. Will this project, help with that condition? I don't think that we're generating a lot of runoff that's going that far down that access, but, just so you know, that is not, responsibility of the city to address.
But are we addressing it?
We will, a little bit, because we'll be managing the runoff from SR 410, so that runoff will not contribute to the low spot where the potholing is, but, even after we complete this project, that will still be a problem.
This road here is private?
Yes, so
Hill
that's
11?
private from about my pen
Yeah.
down.
Okay.
Any other questions on project number one? Okay. So, for project number two, we have them both on one sheet. These are, 67th Street and 67th Street Court East. So the problem with this area is, this is an older, residential community in the city of Vine Lake. When it was originally developed, there wasn't a lot of, or any thought of stormwater management. And so stormwater, seeks the path of least resistance, and the issues that we have out there are, a lot of runoff on private property, a lot of, damage to, landscaping and, residences and whatnot. And so this is a project that's been on the staff's radar to address. And so, with this new system, it'll be what we call a parallel system. So it'll be, we're gonna try to infiltrate as much as we can, to the natural, ground, as much as the soils will take. And then, but it'll have an overflow conveyance system to West Taps Highway, and that's where we would connect, the system. So it's managed. It's not going to, run off onto private property and, go where it's not supposed to go.
We have all the right of way that we use for that.
We do with this first phase.
Yeah, cause that, like you said, it's an older, right? That road's pretty narrow. Right? So, yeah, and then the construction, obviously, like, we have a requirement, right, to put culvert under aprons, right, driveway aprons. Pretty sure there are no culverts on any of those driveways.
Well, there are, but the problem is, when they're installed individually,
Yeah,
you'll have elevations that go like this. And so when you have elevations of culvert that are different elevations, you can't get the flow. So you can't get the stormwater to any particular point. So it'll fill up into that particular basin, into that swale, and then when it gets overwhelmed, it starts to flood. So with this project, all those culverts would be yarded out and new culverts would be installed, so that, there's a continuous flow from point A to point B
and that's the city's responsibility.
to address the runoff.
Yeah, okay.
And then Drew, those were the ones that were specifically part of the swell retrofit program.
Yeah, so these ones are part of the swell. So it's a good point because, in order to be part of that program, we have to actually install swales. And we have to have a water quality element, to the project. So we can't, if we're just gonna do a closed conveyance system without any swale or water quality, then we probably wouldn't qualify. So we have to maintain that criteria. And then 62nd is pretty much the same. Both streets are very similar situations that you have, uncontrolled runoff going through private property. And the system that we're anticipating that we're going to use to address it will be similar on both streets.
So is this going to help people who are getting the pond areas by putting this swale system? Is that going to help improve their property, because it looks like there's a couple of different properties that are affected by the flow of the path. And they're getting the little pond area
Sure.
build up, so that would probably prevent them from being able to do anything to that piece of property if
Right,
it's
right.
always flooding or during a storm. So would this help, because it's gonna, looks like it's gonna direct the water flow towards the lake?
Right, right.
And then you're gonna have a filtering system to help clean it before it goes into the lake.
Sure, it'll have a water quality element on both segments. And so to answer your question, I mean, you know, we field a lot of questions about stormwater runoff and, you know, this particular property is discharging on me. What's the city gonna do about it? And those kind of things. But really, what we can do is only manage what we're responsible for managing. So if it's runoff from the street, you know, we're gonna do our best to manage that and prevent street runoff from discharging on private property.
Right.
So it would address that.
So to me, that sounds like that would be an improvement for people because they're not gonna have a pond
Sure,
every winter
right, right,
that could possibly freeze over.
correct. And then there's multiple residents on both these streets that, you know, have that dilemma. You know, I can't build my shop, because of this runoff issue. You know, what is the city gonna do? Or what can you advise me to do? And, you know, we do our best to, you know, address these spot issues. But with this project, you know, we'll be able to address multiple all at once.
Okay.
So there's a pond off of 76th Street East, approximate pond area. What's
Well,
that?
it's like, that's where all the runoff goes. Do you see it on the, top left?
Yeah,
And then-
we have the right of
Well,
way
this
for
one
that?
here.
Yeah, we have the right of way.
No, so this will be in this particular area we were proposing to do in phase 2,
Okay,
just because we don't have an easement to go across that property
yeah,
and tie into that low spot.
okay.
Because I mean, right at this area here, it's really the low spot of the whole 67th Street. So naturally, stormwater runoff is gonna want to accumulate there.
Mhm.
And so, because of the timing of the way that the funding, you know, how you're allowed to spend the funding, this ARPA funding,
Mhm.
the timing doesn't allow for us to, secure easements for that particular area of the project. Because we have to have the funds obligated in 2024. And that means construction contract signed.
Mhm.
And so we would not have enough time to secure that easement inside of 2024. So that'll be part of our phase 2 project.
Okay, so, but we're not gonna flood their yard when we do this.
No.
And then they'll go, oh, you flooded my yard, and they'll be all cranky pants on us.
No, no.
You would be cranky pants too if you're young.
Yeah, I might have been all right.
No, I mean, that low spot it hasn't changed. It'll still be there.
Okay,
Um,
and then we're gonna go after an easement. We're gonna
that's
go
our plan.
ask them to go get it, okay.
I mean, I'm assuming that they'll be willing to, work with us on that, but
Yeah.
we won't know until we get into it.
So an easement would require the sale of a corner or something.
Not
They
necessarily,
would have to
not
give up a
necessarily,
corner of their property or?
no, not necessarily. It would just be an easement to run the pipe under their
Okay.
property. So it would,
Grant access to.
yeah,
Okay,
like we do with water and sewer easement, water and sewer lines that are located on private property. We have a access right to put that utility in for that specific purpose.
Well, won't we need an easement for the pond?
No, I think we're gonna try to drain the pond.
Oh, got it.
I think we're flowing away from the
You're
pond.
flowing away. Oh, well done.
that
Okay,
that
got
looks
it.
like a huge area of that piece of property, so, I mean, if you're looking at that little cloud there.
Yeah, but
little
they're, I
blue
think they're,
cloud,
I think they're, oh, so, yeah,
that
so the
looks like
arrows go away from it.
Major, yeah, so it's,
Thank
yeah,
you.
it would be taking it away
Hey.
so that they could utilize that portion of their property, which I think would be a benefit to them. So I would hope, unless they like it.
Right.
Maybe they have frogs.
They might, yeah, who knows? All right, got it.
Okay. Just real quick on the photo packet, for exhibit A2. This is a shot of, so this little catch basin right here where my finger is at is this orange structure
Oh.
here where my thumb is at. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're doing good job.
And so just so you know where the existing runoff goes, so from this catch basin, it goes across the street and discharges to this private property just to the south of the dotted line. Packet. And then the second photo is the end of 67th way down by West Taps. And so this area here is where we're anticipating the water quality element of the project. And there is a culvert down here by the stop bar lines
Mhm.
that we would tie into.
So is this gonna be like a pipe system or?
A parallel system, so you'll have a traditional swale with driveway approaches and culvert under the driveway approaches for, flow and conveyance. But also because the street is just, the elevations of the street, it's humpy, it's got a low spot, so it's tough to have one singular system that will convey runoff, because by the time you got to the end, it should be so deep that we would never do that.
Yeah.
So, with a parallel system, you'll have a combination of culvert pipe and conveyance pipe.
Okay.
So when the smaller swales are overwhelmed, it has a overflow into a conveyance pipe that's connected to the system at West Taps.
Okay.
So this isn't actually going into taps, it's just getting into a conveyance system.
Yes, but the conveyance system on West Taps does discharge to Taps,
Taps, okay.
but it's an approved,
Mhm.
water body for discharge. Any other questions?
But we're
on-
not adding any new entry points into taps,
No,
okay.
we'll use the existing outfalls.
Yeah, cause I see the little pink bar down there right on the lakefront, and I'm wondering what that is.
Oh, this here,
Yeah,
I think that was just the survey boundary that the consultant established, but I don't think that we need to survey down to
okay.
the shoreline on that. Any other questions on 67 court?
Not for